Hello, welcome to the medium game semifinals. HaloAndy007 versus Fika Monster. This is a first to 3 points matchup. Andy is the higher seed, so they get to go first in game one. Let's take a look at this kingdom. We don't have any villages, it looks like. Capitalism can play a variety of things. I have to click over here, I guess. Baron, Herbalist, Scavenger. None of those are particularly good. I don't think you're going to go for a Baron stack. So, why doesn't Capitalism project for coffer cards? I don't know. The coffer symbol is different than the coin symbol. It would also be super overpowered if you could play all your candlestick makers. If you could play all your candlestick makers during your, or your scabbing, like a bunch of villains, that would be really powerful. You could build up your coffers, and seems like it would be pretty awesome. Villain would be a much more playable card in that case. Villain's not a great card usually. I think unfortunately here we have to go with familiars. Familiars are a good attack, and attacks are good in Dominion typically. So there's not. I think you just open familiar silver and content yourself to playing a boring familiar silver game. Something Wayfarer does not interact correctly. Yeah, Wayfarer does interact with familiar. So if you play a familiar, give them a curse, you can buy a Wayfarer for 0. That being said, it's not super clear to me what one is doing with a bunch of familiars and Wayfarers in the deck. Those two cards don't synergize super great. And Andy does open with the potion. Fika's got the 5-2. This is a tough call. You might just be like, you know what, I'm going rebuild. Or I'm going to grab an early villain and then swing back around for the potion. But I think just getting the potion is okay. It's a little bit sad because you're not super likely to hit. You're not super necessarily to hit 3 potion here. And Herbalist feels real strange to me. I guess if you draw perfect, like you just did, you can top deck the potion again. And hopefully don't draw 2 potion. Although it seems decently likely that you will. If you top deck the potion, there's 2 estates. So basically one of the estates has to be in the bottom. What's left? 5 coppers, 2 estates. So both of the estates can't be in the top 4, which is actually pretty unlikely. Yeah. So if you don't get that draw, then having the Herbalist is sad. But ending their first shuffle with 2 familiars in the deck seems pretty nice. You just give out a bunch of curses, and then you move into some money-ish kind of slog. Rebuild also doesn't seem crazy to me in that deck because, you know, you've got a potion, an Herbalist, a bunch of familiars, maybe a couple of silvers. Your deck's not doing very much. It's going to take you quite a while to build up the provinces. So a little bit of a sad draw for Andy, but it's just like when you open silver potion, play familiar stuff, your deck's not very good. And you're making that trade-off. You're saying my deck's not going to be very good, but in return your deck's not going to be very good. And in this case, neither decks are going to be particularly good. It's going to be a bit of a slog. Is there a deck where you just throw in a ton of Herbalists and Scavengers and maybe a Baron or 2, get a Capitalism, and play that? I don't think that will work. And I mean, you really badly need to curse your opponent here. If you end up with all 10 curses, it's going to be really tough. Like, Capitalism's not going to matter because you're not going to find multiple good cards in the same hand. I take back what I said about Herbalist. Sheep is actually pretty nice. And like, if you have multiple familiars by the end of the game, you know, you play one as draw and you play the other one as sheep. They're terminal silver, so Herbalist is, I guess, probably better than nothing with Way of the Sheep. So it looks like we've both taken a couple of curses. There's 7 curses, so Fika did get the 2 familiars into that first shuffle, but one of their familiars missed the shuffle. So they've only played a familiar once. And it's worth on these kind of kingdoms tracking pretty clearly what the curse split is. But now they're going to be able to give out 2. Obviously, you don't sheep these yet until later on. And probably you could take a second herbalist for the terminal silver. I can also consider taking a wayfarer here. The gain the silver ability is nice. But again, you've got other terminals in your deck. Like the familiars are not great with some of this stuff. So Andy gets the 3rd familiar. I think I'm on board with that, but that being the last one. You're not buying a familiar anymore on 5 here. You're buying a rebuild, probably. We'll see if Fika goes for capitalism. Oh, they only have 4. I think with coppers and curses, you have too many uniques to make menagerie draw. Or too many duplicates to make menagerie draw work, unfortunately. And he gets a 2nd rebuild, so Andy feels pretty far ahead here. Having the 2 rebuilds already is nice. Probably as Andy here, I would get a duchy. I don't know the exact perfect rebuild order. And there's, in this kind of kingdom though, I think I'm already getting a duchy with 2 rebuilds. They elect not to do that. And you can sheep them during capitalism phase, which is nice. So they can either have 6, I guess 6 and 2 buys and 7 are in 1 buy are the same because you're buying a rebuild, looks like. As Fika, I might actually have thought about getting a gold there and saying I'm going to province out. And he gives out the last curses, so the difference here looks like is Andy has 2 extra curses and a duchy to 1 estate. Can you make a golden deck? So a golden deck is where you... Interesting. So a golden deck is where you play the same 5 cards every turn. So since you have capitalism, if you play 5, you can top deck a treasure, you can top deck your herbalist with capitalism. So basically your deck would consist of 5 herbalists, and 4 of them would be sheeped. Basically, 5 of them would be sheeped, 4 of them would be sheeped. And you just play 5 herbalists, top deck 5 herbalists, you get 10 money, you buy a province. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you could set that up in time. I don't know if you could set that up in time with the familiar stuff going on. It seems difficult. Once you have capitalism and herbalist, you can top deck that herbalist every turn. But like when you get to the 3rd herbalist, it takes you forever to filter through your deck to get to the 4th herbalist. So I don't think there's enough support here for that, as nice as that would be. You can play with some wayfarers in that deck as your terminal to filter faster, because you're okay drawing. You can't draw herbalists dead because of capitalism. So I'm not quite sure why Andy's not further ahead. Their rebuild was really sad here, or their scavenger was pretty sad here. I think you just take a silver now. Scavenger will help. Yeah, but the same problem. You have to find your scavengers in this deck with 7 coppers, 3 estates, 4 curses. The familiars, I guess, are somewhat card neutral, but I can... Yeah, but you have to find the 2nd scavenger, right? So the first time you find the scavenger, you get an herbalist back. Then the next turn, you top deck that herbalist. I'm not seeing how you cycle through the deck fast enough to get to the scavenger then. Other than that, early on in the game, scavenger seems better because it lets you flip the deck over, but it's at least an interesting idea. If there was like a forum or a warehouse or something, I think it could happen. I think this game is going slow enough. Andy's rebuilds are not being particularly cooperative, although that last one was. And the deck's full of junk, so you're hard to find the rebuilds. As I said, I think the 3rd rebuild I would have gotten a duchy in what looks like it's going to be a mirror. That can actually play with Baron too, so you have 4 Herbalists and a Baron. Oh, you can't top deck the Baron too. That'd be fun if you could. You'd need like a throne room or something. You could top deck Crown with Herbalist. So here's Andy, you just name. I think we're still in you name Duchy. The goal here is to pile the duchies out, have some control that way. And then you don't buy an estate here. I think you buy a silver. You might even buy a menagerie, basically as just a cantrip most of the time. And if it happens to hit, you're pretty happy. So here again, they're rebuilding. I think I'm naming Duchy again. I want to try to get a Duchy. Although, yeah, I think you're naming Duchy again. They do have 1 province, so if they know their province is on top, they might name province. Because flipping a province to province here is bad with the estate pile as it is. And Fika having the plus buys, so like they can potentially high an estate pile out with best draw. But yeah, that's the correct play in rebuild to now Fika's estates are pretty useless. There's 3 estates left in someone's deck. I can't tell the art. Oh, here we go. Yeah, in general, in rebuild, you don't want to buy estates. That's like a pretty important facet of rebuild games. You don't want to buy estates here because now if you flip over an estate, it just gets milled into an estate. And then if one player gets 1 province, the game can end. So in general here, I would not have bought any estates. And you want to get to a point where you're turning provinces. You want to get all your estates to duchies, duchies to provinces, and then you're milling provinces with your 2 rebuilds, which is why for the 3rd rebuild, I thought should have been a duchy already to go for that. And the idea is that you're not gaining points at that point, but you're removing total points from the kingdom. So if we look at the trash, there's 11 victory points in the trash, and there's 86 victory points in play. Minus 10 curses is 76. And there's 11 in the trash, so that's 65. So you're trying to basically get to 33 points, roughly. But every time you mill a province, that number goes down by 3. So you're trying to get 32, 29, 26, and then you win with 23 or 20 victory points, whatever it takes. And he does have an extra curse, so that math is a little bit more complicated. But I try to work out that math a lot. So here, Andy names estate, and if you mill the province, it's okay. Again, as I said, it's productive for you. And milling an estate to an estate is quite a bit worse. They did that right. And again, I think menagerie is fine. I think there's a decent chance you don't always have 2 curses. You have enough curses and coppers and other stuff now that there's a decent chance it'll work, and the silver's not doing a ton for you. I guess Fika hits duchy to province. I guess they have to get 2 at that point. So maybe we're past. Yeah, we're past the point where Andy cares. All they need to do now is add. But again, we see two rebuilds. They named province. They really need to name duchy there because now the game is ending and they're behind, unfortunately. And again, I don't know that you're buying estates on this kingdom at all. JCK, what do you think? Like, is there a point when estates are on 8, you're not buying them? I don't think. That's a pretty common pattern, I think, in rebuild is you don't want to buy estates, but people think they want to get estates to turn them into duchies, and really you want to turn duchies into provinces and not estates into duchies. 1-0. HaloAndy's name is first in this list just because they went at the table first. I don't know that Fika got super unlucky there. I think that's normal rebuild luck, and you can play around that. You just name duchy, and they had the duchy in hand. Yeah, well, they're playing rebuild, and they only have they played it funny, is all I'll say. they were playing pretty fast. They didn't analyze specific things, but in general, you bought too many rebuilds by quite a bit. 2 of those rebuilds should have been duchies, and definitely don't buy more estates early. You want to buy duchies and then turn the duchies into provinces, and I think just the way the kingdom worked, you missed 5 a couple times, and Andy hit 5 a couple times early, and that made a big difference. So we'll see how that goes. Andy's reconnected now, so I will join you all in game 2.